welcome to the Miko Bits Show, and I'm your host, Miko Bits. Today, I have an exciting show for you. It's Alex, co-founder and CTO of OpenSea, which is the biggest and best NFT exchange and marketplace in the world. Hopefully, I didn't mess that up too much. And, we're very excited to have Alex on the show for you. So before we jump in, it's an opinion show, it's entertainment, it's information, but it's not investment advice. So if you should seek a licensed professional for investment advice. So before we start, if you're interested in Bitcoin and blockchain, please consider clicking that subscribe button and also click the bell so you can get notifications about future videos that I might post.
Testing.
Thank you. Okay, without any further ado, welcome Alex to the Miko Bits Show.
Thanks, Miko. Great to be here.
Yeah, great having you. So I always like to kick off by asking the question of how did you get into blockchain stuff? What's your superhero origin story?
So superhero, subjective, but it's an opinion show. It was very not a superhero origin story. My co-founder Devin Finzer and I were experimenting with crypto projects, doing a bunch of hackathons, attending Crypto Underground in San Francisco, led by yours truly.
I like that.
That is. And we started with different types of mining incentive structures for aligning incentives towards some goal. In our case, it was related to Wi-Fi and making shared Wi-Fi networks. But pretty quickly at the end of 2017, we noticed that there was a brand new type of asset emerging, mainly pioneered by Crypto Kitties, though they weren't the first to do it. And this asset was just very similar to currency, except instead of fungible and interchangeable goods like money being exchanged from person to person, they were unique items. These unique items were usable in a game similar to Neopets that probably many of you have heard of. And if you haven't, Crypto Kitties just blew up at the end of 2017, became the most used app on Ethereum, took the Ethereum network almost out of commission for days. And suddenly just all these people who had never really cared about crypto, only had heard about it as like a way of buying drugs, were suddenly downloading MetaMask, setting up their Chrome to have a wallet, and playing a blockchain game. So it was a serious game changer for the space. And we threw away our old idea. We were in Y Combinator, so we pivoted on the first day to work on a marketplace for this new type of digital asset.
Wonderful.
And we started by just talking to users and asking them what they wanted. A lot of developers were trying to copy Crypto Kitties, some cloning it, some using it to create trading card games like Magic the Gathering, but on blockchain, and others doing completely crazy new things like making software licenses tradable as non-fungible tokens. So we wanted to build a marketplace that was going to pool all that liquidity together so that buyers could find what's new and see what's popping up, and sellers can find an easy, trustless way of making money from the items that they have.
That's fantastic. That's a great story. So just a quick note of disclosure, right? Which is that my venture capital fund, Gumi Cryptos, is an investor in OpenSea. So just want to make sure people understand that as we go forward. But with respect to kind of the exchange of these exchangeable objects, I guess you really tapped into the sort of soul of it with talking about Crypto Kitties, right? So, but what's new under the sun? What's happening now? How would you see this evolving? It seems like people are getting excited about this.
Yeah, people are getting excited about it. So it's gone to way more than just gaming. Today, actually, we hit a new record for a single item being sold as a secondary sale. In other words, from one user to another user.
Yep.
And it wasn't a game item at all. It was a blockchain domain name.
Ooh.
The developer, the name comes from a developer called Unstoppable Domains. And they're called Unstoppable Domains because unlike normal domain names, which you have to rent essentially every year, you have to pay for your domain names. When you buy an Unstoppable domain, you own it forever. It's an actual true digital ownership.
Wow.
And you can host your website on IPFS and have your Unstoppable domain point to it. These domains end with .crypto. And you can use Opera or Web3 compatible browsers to go and visit these sites. And of course, you can send money to them. You can trade them as non-fungible tokens. You can sell them on OpenSea or any other NFT marketplace.
So inquiring minds want to know. He said it was a record. So how much was it, and what was the name?
It sold for $90,000.
Great.
230 ETH, and the name, get ready for it, was sex.crypto.
That's crazy. Wow.
Yeah. So
that's kind of amazing. That's an amazing thing to contemplate.
Sex sells for 230 ETH.
That's a serious amount of ETH. So that's interesting. But so this is really kind of a bona fide, like top level domain, internet type of domain, right? Like this isn't some kind of like Ether naming system, or like this is really like a proper internet domain name.
No, actually, no.
Okay.
They are I mean, there are a couple efforts to work on that, and there's one company, NFT Cred, that is doing that. They own the TLD, the top level domain .cred, and .ceo, and they have NFTs that represent your ownership of the actual domain that you buy on the registrar that you can sell as secondary items. So you can go and like buy Amazon.cred, and you also get access to that real domain. So the most of the crypto domains on OpenSea though are really decentralized. They're not tied to any domain on a TLD. So they're mainly ways of like linking to your wallet without having to type in a bunch of crazy characters. Yeah. This is like the way IP addresses were back in the 90s. You know, no one could remember the IP address for like a website they liked. And that's why domain names happened.
Yeah. That makes perfect sense. Okay, that's amazing. And it's amazing that this is like a big thing, and it's selling well. One of the things that I've been hearing a lot of buzz about is kind of the DeFi movement, right? And to me, the thing that's so interesting is that there seems to be excitement about NFTs in the DeFi world. So I'm trying to parse it together, and I'm wondering if you're noticing anything in terms of the intersection of these exciting new phenomena.
So let me make sure I get this right. But there are a couple intersections of DeFi and NFTs.
Yep.
And let me try to make sure I spell it right before I say anything about it.
Yeah, no problem.
While I look it up. There's an effort to basically take NFTs that you own and tokenize them so that many people can own the same NFT.
Oh.
And
it's kind of cool. So you take a non-fungible and you kind of chop it into little pieces.
Right. Niftex.com is the name of it. And they've had a couple successful launches where basically someone will sell their NFT and tokenize it so that lots of people can own it. And you can track the market cap for all of these tokens. I can pull up the site. what was it called? Oh boy. Oh yeah, NFT market. Nope, not that. Well, I'm gonna keep looking for it while I talk. But there's an Axie that has a pretty good market cap that's listed on the site. There are a couple artists, like Coin is being launched for Coin Artist on the site, and individual contributors are using it to give like individual unique assets to people, and also to kind of spread around shared community interest and align incentives towards goals that benefit the artists or the individual's community.
That's so funny. That's such a funny trend, right? Because one of the kind of interesting sparklers in the DeFi space is like, I think we were just talking about like Wi-Fi token, right? And the thing that's fascinating is that there are 30,000, of those tokens, and so it becomes this kind of scarce asset, right? But maybe based on what you're describing, it's a matter of time before some really clever token project launches with one token, right? That can be fractionally owned, right? So that would be amusing, right? So it's a single token that has the entire market cap circulation value that's all aggregated in one token, and then people can just own a fraction of that. That would be kind of amusing.
Yeah. I mean, another thing that we're seeing that's kind of DeFi related is personal tokens. So Roll is a way of creating your own personal ERC20 token. And some of them, Whale being an example, are used for quite a few sales on OpenSea. And you can see, like if you go to, I'm trying to find a good link that has a lot of Whale listings, but the Whale is going for quite a bit on CoinGecko. If you look up the
how fun. So personal tokens.
Yeah, so this personal token Whale is right now $6.53 for a personal token.
That's
which
exciting.
is really good.
That's really great. I'm thinking about issuing like a Miko token. I thought that would be fun.
There are a couple, like Whale we've seen pretty good traction around, and there's quite a few listings for Whale. We'll, I think, very soon launch a way of filtering just for listings in a specific payment token on OpenSea. We had it before. We redesigned the whole site last week and launched it.
Congratulations.
Now we're going to add the payment token filter back very soon.
That's super exciting. So tell me what spawned this redesign, and tell me what's new on OpenSea.
Yeah, so we decided to rework everything from the ground up a couple months ago.
Wow.
In part so that we could support new types of liquidity that we think are going to come very soon, and that already are starting to manifest.
Yeah.
But also so that we could just provide a faster and much more reliable experience for when developers are making smart contracts off the platform. We have a really aggressive, it's kind of like a Google style web crawler that just looks for NFTs and grabs the metadata for them.
Wow.
We have a pretty complex way of parsing and showing metadata so that it reliably shows on OpenSea. And so that's indexable and searchable. We overhauled our search infrastructure so that search is just a lot better. And so that also, finally, so that we could support a new type of NFT. It's not really non-fungible anymore. That's starting to gain traction. ERC 1155. It's a new standard for a new type of digital good, kind of in between an NFT and a currency, where multiple people can own copies of the same asset. And one asset and you can also own multiple copies of an asset yourself. So it's kind of similar to trading cards where, there are a couple Black Lotuses in Magic the Gathering. So a couple people can own one Black Lotus, a Black Lotus. It's not just one single item. And developers are using this a little bit now. We think it's going to grow a bit. So and we really wanted to support games that have something similar going on, even with normal NFTs, where they have lots of copies of the same asset owned by lots of different people.
That's so cool. One thing I'm curious about too is, one of the biggest things in the DeFi space is kind of locking and borrowing and lending and all this kind of behavior. Like, are you seeing any of this type of stuff emerging in the NFT world? Like, I've heard rumors about things like lending game items and for interest payments and things like that, rental. So I don't know if you're seeing anything like that.
We are a little bit. There are a couple different, like, there are a couple ways of using your NFT as collateral for a loan. I haven't tried any of them personally, but we're starting to see a little bit of traction there. Most of the interoperability, though, that we're seeing NFTs become a part of is between different games or different dApps. So one example is Disillusion and Neon District. Disillusion has a ship that they launched that's also usable inside of Neon District. And Blockchain Kitties has themed items now that correspond with different games. And they're basically marketing tools. They're ways that in normal gaming, in traditional gaming, there's not a lot you can do if, like, I'm making some trading card game and I want to appeal to Fortnite users. Because I can't be like, hey, if you own this in Fortnite, then come check out my game because you get all these special abilities. You can't do that.
Yeah.
But now you can. So games are realizing that they can use this to market to audiences that they don't have. And they can basically lift all boats with the same ocean. To totally invert a cliche there.
Huh.
And it's kind of like a great way of combining audiences.
I'm confused a little bit about kind of like these trends, right? And so for me, like how would you see this stuff shaping up? Like, what's on the horizon, for this next phase?
Well, there's a lot of exciting stuff on the horizon. I think one really big one is art. It's the fastest growing vertical on OpenSea. If you go to the OpenSea.io/rankings, and you can see all the different projects.
That's exciting. That art is taking off. Can you give some examples? I'm excited to hear about the art scene.
Yeah, well, to take an example from this week, one artist, Josie, did $30,000 in volume in sales in just 1 week, launching a few new assets. And if you have a week like that as an artist, one time every month for a whole year, you're going to be making $360,000 a year. Not only is that a super viable career path for artists in the digital age, it's like way more than viable. It's highly, highly appealing. So I think, it's always been really a big question in the art world. How is the digital age going to work with us? Like, there's just so much in conflict with piracy and art.
Can I ask you, do you have any advice? Like, let's say I have a friend who is a budding kind of artist, like maybe just a visual artist. Like, to me, like, getting involved is really mostly just finding a platform and working with them and whatnot. But like, to me, the thing that's more important to understand is like, what kind of art gets to be the most successful that you've seen? Like, what makes for a successful art piece?
So the most successful art pieces, I think, are animated. They tend to be animated. And that makes sense because you can't have like a easy physical version of that. People will still find ways of putting them up in rooms if they want, like on flat screen TVs or iPad or tablets. But really, the point of art is not like who owns the physical copy of it. It's who owns it. And now there's a real way of tracking who owns it. Your question though was more about like advice for how to create this art. We're seeing some people use Blender and make 3D models, and then they'll film a continuously playable GIF, like a video of this model rotating. One of those videos that loops forever.
Yeah.
Those I think do pretty well. If they really make you feel something, like I saw one with a shoe, and it was a really actually kind of a simple shoe.
Yeah.
But it was moving in this sort of like interesting way that just made you want to look at it for a while, and you could just tell that it would be expensive.
What?
I'm not an artist. Like I don't know much about real art. I'm not part of the real art world, and I don't have an artist taste, I would say. But I could tell that it was expensive.
That's so great. That's a really awesome thing to say, and it's so intriguing.
Yeah, there's some very cool ones, and you can sort by like highest last sale to see which ones are doing really well. Trevor Jones has some really good pieces. Josie as well.
Amazing career.
It's a very, very cool thing. And there's a whole bunch of sites like Super Rare, Maker's Place, Rareable, that also help artists get started. But yeah, also art was the very first NFT. CryptoPunks, they used the ERC20 fungible token standard, but they made NFT, essentially these were non-fungible items, and there were only 10,000 of them. And now people are realizing, oh, it's kind of easy to do now. Like OpenSea has a way of uploading art for free, uploading art, you got to pay a little bit of gas to get it registered on the Ethereum network, but otherwise it's free, and you don't have to code.
That's so cool. That's really amazing. So what's next for OpenSea? Like you just did. I mean, obviously it's a bit greedy for me to ask because you just did a huge revamp, But how do you see this shaping up for you and your plans?
Well, so we're about to do another revamp for this fungible asset. And then the revamp will be fully done. But after that, there's a lot of cool games coming on the horizon. There's Skyweaver, Sandbox. Sandbox is kind of like Minecraft, and they have very, very cool demo videos. If you go to their Twitter and click media, you can just see these awesome demos of, it looks like Minecraft, except you can own the land. You can own the items that are inside of it, and you can trade them openly on any marketplace. And what that means is that developers can actually build on these platforms and not feel like they're just making rows in some database on some other company's server.
Yeah.
They're making real things that are going to last forever and that are up to them for providing metadata. So there's going to be a couple big updates around gaming. We think there's a lot of updates around art. And the biggest update, though, is going to be other blockchains, I think.
Oh, I want to hear about this.
Yeah, everyone's seeing gas prices go through the roof with Ethereum.
Yep.
Thank you, DeFi. And we're now seeing game developers start to really seriously look at other chains. And most of this is L2 side chains. So people are looking at Scale, Matic, Near, Flow, whole other blockchains as well, like Flow, that are not Ethereum, and Clayton as well. They're looking for solutions that are faster and cheaper because they know they're going to have lots of transactions, and they know that making users pay gas is just charging for user acquisition, like unnecessarily. So it's a very serious effort now for the whole community to figure out how to deal with high gas prices. And we're talking to a lot of different developers about it. And if you're one of them, email me or DM me on Twitter so that we can figure out how to make your assets work on OpenSea later. We're starting with EVM compatible blockchains, which means that they work with Ethereum, and you can deploy similar smart contracts onto them. Kind of like how Unix powers both Linux machines and Mac OS X machines. Yep. The EVM is powering a lot of different blockchains and sidechains. And there are a couple games that have already moved onto sidechains, and we're talking to those and working on those assets on OpenSea now.
That's really cool. Can you name any names, or is it pre-launch and hush hush?
Yeah. Well, addition to EVM chains, we've been talking to Wax a bit about getting their assets listed, but I can't give any dates.
That's fine. That's no problem. By the way, full disclosure, Gumi is also an investor in Wax, so thanks for the shout out. But we definitely we're fascinated by the growth of the space. Obviously, the Gumi perspective is sort of games oriented. I think we're Gumi is the publisher of My Crypto Heroes, so that's another title that's interesting. And I think that where one of the things I've been thinking about lately is I've been thinking about there might be some really more gamified non-fungible activity in the DeFi space, right? Like one example is this idea of owning a piece of DeFi history, right? So like for example, one of the things that happens when a company goes public is that they issue like these Lucite blocks, right? So it might be possible to own something like a Lucite block from a first time token issuance, or maybe there could be like really interesting, like for example, one of the things that's becoming really interesting is that governance, people are using kind of Gnosis Safe as a way to kind of like multi-sig administrative keys from a governance perspective, right? So having a fragment of a governance key is kind of a non-fungible at some level as well. So I'm interested in kind of all these really weird non-fungible concepts.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, there's no limit to creativity for what kind of collectibles you can make for significant events.
I think the history part is important, right? I think the thing that's neat about it is that like you can own a piece of history, and it could potentially be just financial history, like it could be like, owning like an example would be you could have these liquidity rewards, and the rewards could be NFTs, right? So for example, you could be like, oh, you're the 1 millionth DAI that got value locked into our smart contract, here's an NFT, right? So you could give out NFTs that kind of correspond with kind of historical events in the creation of a DeFi protocol, right? So like there's all kinds of funny intersections that could be made, or here's a Crypto Kitty, right? Which would be even more funny, right? Like, where you're participating in a DeFi and all of a sudden like collectible NFTs that almost have a gaming thing kind of start falling out of the sky, right? Like that suddenly your wallet suddenly has like this funny, NFT in it that actually is art, or is, here's a piece of art because you're our 1 millionth customer, or, anything could come out of that.
Right. Yeah. Some of it will just be, it just takes patience, because when that 1 millionth DAI gets locked up, it might not be that big of a deal, but later on, it just gets really valuable.
Totally. So do you see any kind of like mainstream-ish stuff happening? Like obviously one of the ones everyone's watching closely is kind of the NBA stuff that, the Flow Chain / Dapper Labs people are working on. But like, what else do you see with respect to kind of mainstream adoption or excitement around NFTs?
Dapper Labs is also working on Dr. Seuss collectibles.
Wow.
Those will be cool. The site's very cool so far, even though it's just a landing site. The Formula One has partnered with Animoca, and they have a game called F1 Delta Time that has auctioned all of their cars on OpenSea. And they actually hold the record for the largest NFT sale we've ever done. They had their first car sold for about $116,000. This is a purely digital car that they auctioned. Let me think about what others. We've seen a few, we've seen mostly new stuff, more than traditional IP do really well. And I think in part this is because there's just this appeal to the long tail, like to indie developers and indie artists, to new technology that traditional players don't get or can't see until too late. And like we're very different from Unity, but this is also how Unity started off. They appealed to the long tail when everybody else was trying to build technology for the biggest gaming studios.
That's cool.
And it worked out that way.
Yeah, that's fascinating. So I'm curious about kind of you were talking about how these more funny projects, maybe not the mainstream IP, work. Like what about kind of meme related stuff? Like, are you seeing stuff like that? Any meme coins or meme NFTs or anything in that direction?
Well, new this week, I just saw a new collection called Meme Limited, which there's always meme stuff. There's Meme Factory. Let's see. Meme Limited is an experimental protocol mashing up some of the most exciting innovations in DeFi and crypto collectibles. Put your meme to work by farming NFT memes. Stake LP tokens for access to our batch of legendary cards. Wow. That's the description on OpenSea. I haven't gotten into it. I don't know exactly what I'm talking about here, but I see like a card, a CZ card.
Oh, how fun! That kind of has the mood of like that whole like blockchain heroes kind of thing.
Yeah. Blockchain heroes was another good example.
What's your take on blockchain heroes?
I don't know a lot about it, to be honest.
Oh, okay.
But I did see some of their cards come out, and I think there was one of Dan from OpenSea.
How Dan fun! They need to get one. It's funny, actually, right? Because there's one that kind of is this sort of like Bitcoin samurai type character, and it strangely looks quite a lot like me, but like apparently I'm told that these are not the actual people. Like they're really just these people that just happen to look like the Winklevoss twins, or but they're not supposedly not those people.
Well, maybe that's just what they say.
Yeah, I mean, that's of course
obvious. So wait, I'm trying to find it.
I think they're being clever. Because like obviously they don't have any agreements with the people to use their likeness. So I think they're just saying like this is a hero and it's the Bitcoin twins, and the Bitcoin twins amazingly look like Tyler and Cameron Winklevoss, but it's not really them. Like it's just this superhero called the Bitcoin twins. So but I think they're being coy, but those are pretty fun.
I need to check it out again. It was hilarious when I first saw it.
How important is gameplay?
Gameplay, good question. So there are. Like League of Kingdoms is an example of a game that has really good gameplay. You get a map, you get characters, you can really get into it and play it. Ethercraft is a dungeon game that's also got really good gameplay. and Axie, really good gameplay. So it's something that's just really hard to do. There's no formula for just suddenly have a good gameplay. You have to have creativity, and you have to not make mistakes that lots of game developers make.
Yeah.
So it involves like lots of trial and error, and it's something that like it makes it hard for new users to get into it if the game is too complicated.
Yeah.
But it makes it easy for power users to stay because there's just so much to do when you have really good gameplay. So finding like games with really good gameplay, sometimes like I hear people just are always playing them.
Yeah.
And they don't stop, and that's the sign.
Nice.
That the gameplay is really good. And we hear that now from, it didn't used to be any games that really had this, but now there are a good handful of games where I just hear that I haven't stopped playing for years because there's just so much to do.
Here's a question is, what about investment? So what I mean from that perspective is that like it seems like there are probably people who are in NFT kind of almost entirely just for the investment purpose, right? So like, how do investors reason about this whole space?
Well, my framework for how to talk about this is like what types of users there are. So prior to crypto, there were really just two types of users for things. There were, the new users and the power users, like we were just kind of discussing actually. And crypto kind of unlocks a new type of user for every decentralized app, and that's the speculator. Someone who isn't really going to play the game. Maybe they'll play around with it as a new user. Maybe they won't even touch it though.
Yep.
What they want to do is they want to invest in the assets underlying the game because they think the game's going to do really well and something of value is being created as a part of the gameplay or as a side effect of it. And OpenSea has indirectly appealed to those investors as being the easiest way of discovering these things and tracking how they're doing over time. We're going to launch a couple big new features in the last quarter of this year that really directly targets these users.
Oh, wow.
Because we think speculators are really healthy for these games. They provide lots of liquidity and they start off the market. They lower prices a bit for new users to get involved with like the assets they want by just adding more liquidity and competition to the market. And they also help the game developer a lot.
Yeah.
It's kind of obvious. So game developers now have just a much easier time getting started and figuring out what to build and how to raise money. They can do a Kickstarter and a marketplace at the same time. It's not one or the other.
Yep.
So we're very into that new user group.
That's exciting. It's exciting. And obviously like there are things like land pre-sales, and there are these kind of very highly kind of speculator enriched kind of ideas of NFT pre-sale that really help, right? Because when you're pre-selling, then people are really trying to get in on the ground floor, right? So the speculators are early and they just want to have a bunch of assets because later on when the game goes bananas, then everyone wants some of this stuff. So yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I like it. It feels like pre-selling is a big thing in the gaming industry now, especially almost like a crowdfunding Kickstarter type of model.
Yeah, except you're getting assets that you're actually going to be able to use, not just t-shirts.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like what's happening in Kickstarter is that you get like a collectible, non-fungible, or you get a fungible t-shirt, and after you wear it a couple times, it becomes kind of non-fungible because nobody else wants it. But like, it's sort of, but I agree with you. Like, unlike Kickstarter, like you get this commemorative element, you get the historical element, and, I think it sounds great. Well, I feel like this area, the NFT area, like has a really bright future, and I think that it's great that you've got such a horizontal platform for kind of playing in here. Do you have any kind of last parting words around sort of the future of NFT, and what's your vision for what's to come?
Well, I think one of the easiest light bulbs that goes off when I talk to other people about NFTs is the light bulb for developers, for the people making these games or producing these goods or being creative and drawing or illustrating assets. Like Etsy is a really easy way to be an entrepreneur. You can like craft something at home, put it on Etsy, ship it to people who buy it. But honestly, I think with a little more work, and if crypto were a little easier to acquire, it's not going to be the easiest way to be an entrepreneur, not even close. Creating digital assets of your own and putting those for sale, or creating your own game. But the easiest thing would just be being a digital artist. That will be the easiest way anyone can be an entrepreneur. And you can create your own storefront that you own, that's not just like sitting on or locked into OpenSea's backend. This is something that OpenSea just helps you make, but that you really are the owner of. You can put it on any marketplace or any site. You can build your own site once you have enough money to hire a developing team. You're getting started being an artist or an entrepreneur in a really like trustworthy way. And suddenly it's just so much easier to be your own boss.
That's so beautiful. I really love the direction. I love the concept, and I love this kind of idea that as people kind of move into the digital age, that people are deriving more and more meaning and putting more and more of themselves online, and that the emergence of like almost like an Etsy type of mindset to this stuff it's about having these things that make your life kind of more cheerful and more, it gives you a good positive experience. So I love that people will be making this and selling those on OpenSea.
Yeah, and if you want to get started and you don't know how, like OpenSea Twitter is very easy to DM, and I am too, and our Discord is basically a big Q&A.
I love it. And I'm definitely going to encourage more people to try their hand at this, because, why not? Like, to me, the thing that is happening with the COVID phenomenon is that like more and more people are kind of stuck in their homes, and, a lot of people are kind of curious to maybe try to derive some residual income from the internet. And, if they can really provide a novel self-expression and create something that's really fresh, and everyone's having emotions, so if you said create something where you feel, it makes you feel something, right? And like, people can really tap into the things that they're having now, these feelings, because people are all having not the same, but lots of people are having feelings now, and like there may be a great opportunity for people to express themselves and to kind of like create things that are really fundamentally unique and non-fungible and scarce and non-transferable, or transferable obviously, but not copyable, right? So that's a beautiful vision.
Yeah, and just to add one more quick comment,
of course,
the digital world is really good for this stuff and for art, and it's sometimes hard for people to see how, but when I own a physical piece of art and I just hang it up on my wall, and no one knows that I own it, and no one can see it except me, then no one can bid on it. Its value just goes down. There aren't people you can't appeal to the person in like Malaysia who suddenly finds tons of value in that art, and now its value goes up. They can't see it. It's hanging on your wall. But you have to have a digital version. Otherwise, you can't appeal to everyone in the world.
I love that. So in a sense, what's happening is that it's hanging in your room on a big screen TV or something, but it's also hanging in a gallery, and it's also being auctioned, right? In the sense that like someone can come over and say, I love that, I want that, do you want, so it's liquid, right? Like in a sense that someone could buy it from you, right off of your wall. Like, I mean, it's a silly idea that it's a wall, but like it's the idea that you're projecting this image onto your TV, which is great. It makes you feel happy, but at the same time, it could also be on a secondary market, right? Like someone can come along and be like, I want to outbid you. I want to pay double of that. I want to pay double what you paid because I have to have it. And that's great. That's a great perspective, right? Because otherwise, if it's a physical art, then you're going to like, Sotheby's, you're going to some auction house and they're hitting the gavel, and it doesn't have liquidity unless you go through all of that rigmarole, right?
Yeah, it's back to the freedom point. You got to let people do what they want with their money, and
yes,
to show people what they want to spend their money on.
That's great. That's great. I'm very excited. I'm excited for the update. I'm definitely going to come check out OpenSea, and I'm really looking forward to directing my friends towards it, and like having them try putting some art on there, because it's a big world and it's a big exciting opportunity for a lot of people. So I think people should be taking a crack at it.
Absolutely.
Thanks so much. Great having you out here.
Great being on here, Nico.
Bye.
Thanks for the invite.